Good morning. It's Mentor Monday. Today is Monday, March 5th, 2018. Mentor Monday is your weekly micro dose of inspiration, encouragement, and miracle grow on your human potential and your potential as a coach. This week we've dedicated to being focused on feedback. And the funny part is American Idol's coming back this week, which is a show that is completely based on not just talent, but on feedback every week from the viewers at home to the judges who are on the show. And to me, the first 2 weeks of American Idol are always the most entertaining to me because they travel around the country, they do auditions, and thousands of people show up. And every time they do these auditions, they have producers who are on the front end who listen to the people, maybe they give them a minute or two to do their thing, and they decide whether they go to the real judges who are going to decide whether or not they go on the show or not. And when you see the judges in the back, they never know when that door opens what is going to come through the door. It could be because you can't judge it on appearances, and it could be somebody who's really amazing, someone who's really good but rough around the edges. But a lot of times it's people who have no business on the show at all. They have no talent. And when they get up there and they open their mouth, you watch the judges' faces, but the feedback is what is the most entertaining part. Because sometimes it's mean, sometimes it's helpful, but nonetheless, it's always really entertaining. And when you watch these people get up and they make an attempt to sing, you're wondering, how come these people never had any feedback before they ever got on the show? Otherwise, they would have known this is not really probably in your top 5 best decisions that you've made on your life to go on here. And see, that's one of the reasons why we need feedback. Feedback is really about your potential as a human being. It's about your personal development. It's about your growth. And it's about the changes you need to make as a person, as a coach, and actually as a business. If feedback to you is seen as something that's purely judgmental or something that people do to criticize, tear you down, or just be mean, you'll avoid it at all costs. But all of us need feedback because feedback is the key to growth. If you've ever stopped growing, it's probably because you stopped receiving feedback. And listen, none of us have all our ducks in a row. None of us ever arrive. And so we need feedback from people that we trust, which leads me to the next point, is that we all have blind spots. We always have to find people that we trust that can give us kind of a reality check. Because going back to the American Idol example, when these bad singers get in front of the experts, it's amazing to watch some of them throw temper tantrums or tell them to talk to the hand, tell them what kind of mistake that they made, get really personal and tell them that they are bad singers or they don't know what they're doing. Listen, if they're in front of experts and they can't receive feedback on what's going on, these are the experts. And if they can't receive feedback on these people are the professionals. They can't receive feedback from them, then they're probably not going to receive feedback from anyone. And you have to wonder, how can this individual be so out of touch with their ability or their lack of it? And my guess is that most of these people have never listened to a recording of themselves, or their friends have not been really honest with them up to now. Or maybe their friends just know, I can't give this person feedback because they're probably going to throw a tantrum and they're probably never going to be my friend again. And so what I'm telling you is not to get your feedback from bad sources, but there are critical voices that are actually very helpful, and they are the experts who can draw our potential out of us if we listen to what they have to say. See, sometimes I think that we are our own worst critics, but other times I think that we think that we're fully developed in some areas that really could use a little bit more processing and could use a little bit more change. But it's up to you, not to others, to generate feedback so that you're never left guessing and you're not simply assuming, hey, I'm a rock star now and I have this thing together. It's up to you to solicit feedback from the sources that you want it. So here's some tips really quickly on how to receive feedback. Number 1, reframe feedback to see it as a positive developmental opportunity. In coaching, it's really important for us to help people reframe. And reframing means that I'm going to look at this particular circumstance or this situation, and I'm going to find all of the good at it. See, there is a fight or flight response in every human being. That's where stress comes out of. It's us seeing a dangerous situation, and your body sees it, and it pumps blood to where it needs to be pumped. Your heart rate gets higher. There's all of these things that are happening in your body to actually help you run away from danger. It's kind of a primal thing that's in us. Feedback is one of those things that when we hear it, our body responds in a way that it's seeing that as a threat. And because it sees it as a threat, it makes us go into a defensive position. And our heart rate goes up, and we get scared, and we sweat. That's why when we have a review that's coming up, we're all like nervous, and we have so much anxiety. Well, here's the thing, is that we have to reframe that. We have to teach ourselves that feedback is a really good thing. And so we have to ask ourselves, what could I really be gaining? We have to change our perspective on feedback. And the more you put yourself out there soliciting feedback from the people that you want, the more you're going to reduce these kinds of triggers. And the way to solicit feedback is going to ensure that you get helpful feedback and not bad feedback, which leads me to tip number 2. Number 2 is to ask for specific feedback. It's not helpful for me to ask a client, do you feel like our coaching relationship is going well? Because here's the thing, is that most people know that they don't like feedback. They get bad feedback. So when we ask for feedback from people, especially something that's a closed-ended question, what's the first response that someone's going to give you? Oh, everything's going fine. It's a closed question. It's not very specific. And so they're going to answer something with a really generic yes or no. And in most cases, they're going to feel the pressure to answer it with a yes. And so you've got to open up the question like we teach our coaches to do. Some of you are in our life coach training course right now, or you're getting certified through us. We actually teach you how to open up those questions. These are what or how questions that we need to ask. Listen to a couple of them. What elements of our relationship have helped you out the most? What am I doing? I'm opening up, I'm asking for something specific, and they can't just give you a yes or no response. They have to think about it, contemplate it, and give you a great response. What kinds of things do I do as a coach that make you feel most supported? That's a good question, huh? What about this? In what ways could I support you better? And so it's not coming from a negative. We can bypass the negative, and we can just ask again, in what ways could I do this better? Because I want to find out the things that I do for clients that they really appreciate so that I can keep reproducing those kinds of things. Don't just ask clients for feedback. If you're part of a business networking group, ask members of that group that have known you for a while how you can be best perceived. Ask them, how can I appear more helpful? What things can I do that could be most beneficial to show myself as a giver and not a taker here? These are questions that I would ask when I was in a networking group for a little while, not real long, because I don't want that initial impression to fade away. One of the things that I found out about myself was that I'm a really dominant personality. And when I would come into the room, there would always be this energy, and for some people, it make people take a step back. And when I grew in this self-awareness, I could start responding to people. I could see it on people, and I would learn to dial down when it was appropriate for me to dial down. That way I'm not overpowering people, and I'm not blowing people out of the water and spending months trying to rehabilitate that first impression. You can't change the first impression, but you can go back and you can adapt so that people respond to you much more positively. Number 3 is make it easy for someone to give you feedback. And I'm going to give you some quick do's and don'ts on how to make it easy for people to give us feedback. Don't defend yourself. That's one of the things that you see on American Idol. It's a turnoff for everyone. Don't get into a defensive position. That's someone who thinks that the feedback is coming to harm them, and someone who doesn't really value feedback. There's nothing worse than someone going into a defensive posture, especially when you're trying to help them. It makes people not approach you. Most people hate it themselves, and they don't really want to give feedback. And so if you're defensive, then they definitely won't. So we've got to change. Don't defend yourself. No talk to the hand. None of those kinds of things. And so don't defend. Even if you think that they're wrong, don't feel like you have to get into a defensive position. Listen, if you're a healthy person, if you've got wholeness in your heart, then even if someone is giving you bad feedback, you won't be defensive. Here's the next thing. Do ask for clarification. If the feedback is vague or unhelpful, ask more questions and ask them to clarify what they're saying. Ask for examples. I don't want you to ever walk away from a feedback situation wondering, what did they mean by that? And you're trying to think about examples, you're trying to think about all of your relationship and every moment that you've had. If you don't have an example, if something's unclear, don't just nod your head and say thank you and walk on. I want you to actually ask so that you can get as close and as much black and white information to how they perceive things, so that it's really clear and you're not wrestling around with it for the next day or weeks or even months, or avoiding this person when you see them. Make sure that you squeeze and you actually strain, like putting it through a strainer, like a filter, and find out what it actually means. Don't reject even first impressions. I know that people get us wrong many times the first time that they meet us. Maybe it's a bad day, maybe we weren't very self-aware, or people were dealing with some kinds of subjective experiences. But here's the thing, you're building a business. Yes, people get it wrong, but what you're going to do is you're going to grow in self-awareness of how people see you when they meet you the first time. Do listen openly. Give people the courtesy of eye contact and body language that shows openness. See how my hands are open? I'm inviting. I'm asking people to come in. When your arms are folded, when you're looking around the room, when you're biting your lip, when you're grinding your teeth, these are all like negative responses, and it shuts people down. If you may have to actually become very self-aware of your body language and actually change it. Open your feet towards them as well. If you're standing, don't turn your feet away. These are things that we actually teach you in our course of how you can actually be more responsive and be an active listener even with your body language. Here's another thing. Do assume good intentions. Don't think that people are trying to hurt you. Assume this person's coming at me and they're actually wanting to help me. So this is really important to have that perspective about that individual. Another thing is do ask, is there anything else? That way this person feels like they're listened to, and if there is anything else, if you're soliciting feedback or if they're trying to give you feedback, that's that one extra step so that they've said everything that they need to say. Do ask for advice. Hey, okay, what would you do? What would you do to change this? What would you encourage me to do moving forward? Take those suggestions. They may be really, really helpful, and you may be able to adapt what you do. Don't run to someone who will defend you in a private conversation. That's not the way that you honor feedback. I know that we can go find people who agree with us and who really know us and say, man, can you believe that this person said this about me? Do you think that that's true about me? And of course, this person who knows you is going to hold up the mirror of who they know you to be, but it's probably not going to get you to deal with and change the things that you need to change. Do solicit feedback early and often. So with first impressions, people who first meet me, don't wait 6 months until you ask them for feedback. Do it early. Find out how they see you, how they view you. Follow up after you've made some changes and ask those people, do you see these changes in me? I've done that with people, and because I want to make sure that what I do differently is actually observable. And people really appreciate it because they know you listened to the conversation and you actually tried. And here's point number 4 overall. Feedback is a total waste of time if we don't actually use it. So make valuable changes in the future. Nothing is worse than someone giving you feedback and you don't do anything with it, because they will actually notice that. Sometimes feedback is off and it's judgmental. It's not really good. We allow those things to roll off our backs. But good feedback that is trustworthy and specific needs to be leveraged, and you have to have a plan of action for that feedback to follow it through and to see something change that would actually benefit you as a coach, would release your potential, but also grow your business. Every human has potential. If they didn't, coaching wouldn't even exist. we would just assume that people as they are is what we see is what we get, and that's as good as they will be. And so feedback's one of those things that for us as coaches, as individuals, will remove the ceiling off of our effectiveness as a coach, and it'll actually increase your sphere of influence. You'll be seen as someone who not only is knowledgeable and is an authority, but someone who is helpful and benefits others, especially when you respond to feedback. Let me close with this. We have a free tool for you today. You'll actually see it on the page. All you have to do is just fill in your email to get the tool. The tool is a client feedback tool. It's one of the tools that we actually have from our Jumpstart Your Coaching practice. You know, sometimes it's really difficult to ask for feedback and ask the right kinds of questions. This tool will actually give you the questions that you can start with to begin that dialogue and to begin putting yourself in a winning position to gather feedback and blow the roof off your potential. I mean, like explode as a coach and as an individual. It's a free tool, so just enter your email and it'll immediately send you a link to the tool. Hey, I appreciate you guys a ton. We'll see you back in a couple of days for our Wednesday upgrade. Have a great rest of your week and take care.